You're watching Public Affairs. Berkowitz is my name and politics is our game, and we're going to be doing lots of politics and public policy this evening because we have as our guest Tom McNamee. He is Tom McNamee.
McNamee.
There we go. Tom McNamee. He is the editorial page editor of the Chicago Sun-Times. He has been in that position for the last 4 years. He's basically been a lifer, would you say, of the Chicago Sun-Times?
I left for a while, and I edited North Shore magazine for about 3 years, back in the early 90s, was it?
You came there as an intern, right?
I came as an intern, left for about 4 years, but came back.
So you know the city.
Yeah.
You grew up in the city.
I grew up
on
in
the South
Chicago.
Side.
Right.
It's like the heartbeat. You have the heartbeat of Chicago. This is what you need to be the editorial page editor, but you want to be writing about things that are relevant.
I don't know if I say something so flattering about myself as the heartbeat of
I'm
Chicago.
saying it, Tom.
You
I
can say it.
You don't have to agree with
You know,
me.
there are
But
Jeff,
who are you to really argue with me, Tom? I mean, it's my show. So if I say you're the heartbeat of Chicago,
there are advantages and there are disadvantages to that.
Right.
You know, if you grow up in a town, you know it really well. I mean, the classic example is Mike Royko. He knew Chicago inside out. But you know, if you've been around a bit, if you lived other places, you bring a perspective to it, to the job that maybe is useful also. So, you know, it's the same thing with editors. We've had editors who grew up here and editors who didn't. They both have a different strength. They're like current editor Don Hayner, he grew up in Chicago. He knows it inside out. And it's very helpful. On the other hand, when these other guys came through, like Michael Cook, they brought in some things from Canada and whatnot that were helpful at times. So it works both ways.
Conrad Black, he brought
you know what I'm trying to say, Jeff.
He brought a perspective of corruption, would you say?
Absolutely.
But has he been vindicated now? I mean, sort of.
I don't think so.
Some of it was overturned, right?
Some of it was.
Because of the honest services doctrine, right?
Right.
But seriously, so you did bring some outside perspective that was good, some that was not so good. Some would say they lost the institution, they lost what the core, the guts of the Sun-Times. You've gone through bankruptcy, right? Mm-hmm. You're still in bankruptcy, right?
No, we're out.
You're out of bankruptcy.
Mm-hmm.
Things are going well.
It's going better.
You're starting to charge.
Sometimes
You're starting to charge for online content.
Well, actually, September, October, November, and this month, the paper will actually make money, which is the first in a long time, and that's a good thing.
So you're going to start hiring. So if I were to apply for a job next week, you'd say Berkowitz will take you in a heartbeat?
No.
I thought it was worth a try, folks. Okay. All right, but so
you're putting me on the spot.
Well, I'm going to do that all the time. Because what are the two most important things that you should be editorializing constantly, frequently, often in Chicago Sun-Times?
Finances of the city is part of it. I know it sounds really boring, but if Chicago doesn't have a tax base, then they can't survive as a city. Chicago's done a fantastic job, and I give Mayor Daley a lot of credit for this.
Finances are one of the most important things.
Finances be number one, and public corruption is, I think, a very big issue for us.
Number two. Number three.
You like to think you live in an honest town.
Number three.
How far is this going to go?
Only three.
And number two, number three, schools.
Schools. I'm surprised that's not numero uno.
Maybe number one. Yeah,
probably
that's right.
Uno.
I mean, I've never been asked to prioritize, so I just shot them off.
Nobody's asked you to prioritize all this time?
Not the way you're
doing
doing
it. How many times have you been on Chicago Week in Review? They never asked you to prioritize?
No. So I would think that, you know, now that I'm thinking about it, yeah, schools might be number one. It's so important, don't you think?
I mean, how many years have the schools been basically performing awful?
Right.
Or awfully, I guess is the correct way of saying it. Because Chicago reform was in 1995 when it started, when they handed it to Daley. The legislature said, we're going to screw him, give it to Daley, he'll screw up, and, you know, it's off our backs. Isn't that the Republican strategy in 95? Mm-hmm. Because the Republicans had, by the only 2 years that they had control, and with the last 30, the 2 years that interrupted the reign of Mike Madigan. Would that be a formal way to put it? Speaker Mike Madigan kind of reigns over the city of Chicago. In a way, he reigns, and he R-A-I-N-S, and he also reigns R-E-I-G-N-S, or however you spell that, right? I mean, that's true. I've got it right. You're nodding, but you got to sort of. Sometimes they might not have the camera on you, so you got to be audible in the show. Right?
No, I know what you're looking for.
A yes or no?
To Mike Madigan?
Yeah. Does Mike Madigan reign over the city?
He's the Illinois House. He's the guy.
Okay.
He's the only guy that matters.
For 30 years, he was the guy. More than 30 years, but that 2-year period when the Republicans had the speakership. Remember, they sort of got it from redistricting, and they managed then to lose it again. And that was Speaker Lee Daniels, right?
I don't know.
Yeah, he was helped by Dan Proft. Dan Proft, people don't realize, but Dan Proft was there for the second year. Proft, our good friend, he could get blamed for that. I mean, even though he comes on the show often, I got to tell you, Dan, you could get blamed because he came there, he was a young kid, and they lost it. You think they ought to blame Proft? Probably not. All right, so, but seriously, in terms of education, that reform started in 95. You really have to say it hasn't really done much. I mean, Paul Vallis, you know, He got the buildings in shape. So kids weren't getting killed at the same rate. Now they're starting to get killed again. And test scores moved up a bit. But then Mayor Daley basically said in 2001, look, kid, Vallis was sort of a kid, I guess, at that point. You've done well, but you're getting too big for your britches. We're going to kick you aside. And so Vallis decided to run for governor. But he was going to get kicked out of that anyway, because that's the thing about the city of Chicago. And under the Daleys, Daley 1, Daley 2. Whenever you start getting too big, they kick you away, right?
I think that's oversimplification, but
really?
Is that, I'm not quite.
Well, let's go back to education, because I'm getting.
Yeah, right.
So but prior to '95, they were doing things in education, so-called reform, not as dramatic. And basically, education in the city of Chicago has been from awful to now they say it's a model for other cities, but it's only a model for other inner cities because they're so bad. Mm-hmm. Basically, still, how many kids? What's the percentage of kids in Chicago that read at grade level?
I don't know.
Probably maybe 40, 50%. It can't be much higher than that. So why aren't you guys? I'm just thinking. I don't know what the editorial was we were thinking earlier today, but it wasn't on education. That I can tell you. And it wasn't on education on Sunday. And I went back and I started reading the last 2 or 3 months. That's why we got all these papers around here. Yeah. Sun Times, even some Wall Street Journal, just to give us perspective.
So why don't we write more editorials about schools? We write about schools more than anybody in this town. We write about schools probably once a week at minimum. Once every
about editorials.
Editorials. About every 2 weeks. If you go back and you count, you haven't counted. If you go back and count, we read about the schools about every 2 weeks. We read about everything with the schools.
Have you ever come out for school choice?
We have, as a matter of fact. We came out when Senator Meeks, when Senator Meeks came out before it. We took the view that a limited school choice made some sense.
That what?
That a limited school choice.
So not school choice for everybody.
Yeah,
just
I don't know
limited.
what you're doing here.
Well, I'm trying to be edgy. We told you that.
No, I don't know what you're trying to do here. So the point is, Jeff. We have come out for schools. And we've come out very strongly for the turnaround of schools. Which your question is this: does anything work? That's your question, right?
Does anything work? Now I don't understand.
To improve the schools.
Yeah, my question is: do you
think
there's anything you can recommend if you were a king, if you weren't just writing editorials, but if you could dramatically change the quality of education? What is it that you
know? And the answer to that,
you have other people who advise you, but you have a lot to say about this.
The answer to that is nobody you can really say. I mean, everyone wants to fix all of these schools. All these problems in schools get handed to them, which are kids who come from difficult families. They're not prepared for school. They go home to homes where they can't do their homework. The TV's on. No one's there to help them out. And the schools get this thrown in their lap. And then we keep trying different ways. But here's the reply to that is this: you got to keep trying, because the schools are the best way we have to try to do something about poverty and all these difficult problems in our society. So you got to keep trying, right?
Okay. Well, here's a book. It's called School Choice.
Yeah.
It's by Herb Wahlberg. It's a little unfair because you could pick up a book and show me and I probably wouldn't have heard of it. So I'm not doing it for that reason. But it is a book. It comes from the Heartland Institute. I think you've probably heard of the Heartland Institute, right? Sure. Free market institution, think tank here in town. Herb Wahlberg wrote this, I think, under their endorsement or support.
Is he advocating charter schools? What do you mean?
School choice, the findings. I think what he does, he takes a look at the findings for charter schools. Do they outperform traditional public schools? Yeah. Do voucher schools outperform traditional public schools? And the answer is yes.
And the answer is not yes.
Yeah, the answer is.
The answer is not yes.
Have you read this
Jeff,
book?
As a matter of fact, I've read a lot of stuff about this.
Have you read this book?
No. Okay. And that book means I'm wrong?
No, it doesn't. I'm just saying.
That book, no. You're telling me the Heartland Institute with the libertarian point of view puts out one. No, but why are you asking it in that way?
Because I'm saying if you didn't read this, I'm saying, would you be willing to read this?
Of course I would. Okay. Of course I would. But the answer,
the question,
but your point is this: you think reading one book makes you an authority in this?
No. I think talking to dozens of experts.
Right, and so have we. And the fact is, some charter schools work. Some charter schools don't. And you support the good charter schools, you don't support the bad ones. Sun Times supports charter schools, good ones.
On average, do charter schools outperform public
as a matter of fact,
that are not charter schools?
As a matter of fact, on average, they don't, which is one of the frustrations. Inglewood is a good example. They have 3 schools. One's a charter school, 2 are not. The charter school in Inglewood, it's hard to know if it's doing any better than the other 2 schools. Sometimes charters do better, sometimes they don't. It's not a magic bullet. And this is the thing. Charter schools are part of the solution. We have editorialized that we should support charter schools. Let me finish. That we should support charter schools when they work. But to take a point of view that they are a magical solution is simplifying the matter tremendously. Do you understand that?
Do you know why I'm doing that, Tom?
No, I mean...
Do you think I'm just like a lunatic who picked this up and said, this is a great thing?
No, because you, like me, want better schools.
No,
and so you think charter schools might help.
Just take a wild guess. Take a wild guess.
I'm not guessing anything. But let me tell you this. That,
but the reason is that that's rooted in a deeply held theory, a belief. I'm not advocating for the unions. I'm not advocating for some companies.
We're certainly
got charter
not
schools.
Advocating for unions.
No, I have no dog in this race.
Yeah.
Okay, but I studied economics at the University of Chicago for 5 years in graduate school. Mm-hmm. I studied under Milton Friedman. He is the father of charter schools. He wrote about that. Probably others have written about it before, but he wrote about it as early as 1952. The point why you'd expect vouchers to do well and charter, especially vouchers more than charter schools, okay?
Yeah, we
See, I'm a reasonable guy, and I'll say, okay, go with charter schools. But really, if I had my wish, it would be vouchers. Mm-hmm. But the thing why people should suspect that vouchers would do better, we live in the country called the United States of America. We live...
you know, pull out your Constitution?
God, you have to, don't go home, don't leave home without it. Put it in your pocket. No, this is kind of dog-eared, but the Constitution of the United States of America, we live here because basically we believe in freedom.
Yeah.
Okay? It's a book, there's another book called Capitalism and Freedom. You may have heard of that. But the point is, it's not just schools. If you go out and you buy you buy an alarm clock, okay? Mm-hmm. It's competition that produces good alarm clocks.
Right.
And the ones who don't produce good alarm clocks, they go out of business. Yeah. Now, I want to know why you think that's not going to work in education.
Did I say that?
Because, yeah, you seem to say, it's not that you think it won't work, it's that you don't seem to have a predisposition to think that a free market solution, which is not what we have now, won't work. I start with that presumption. Mm-hmm. It may not. There may be a market failure there. But my presumption is, in America, whether you're selling computers, whether you're selling automobiles, whether you're selling newspapers, okay?
Yeah.
Competition is good, and it helps. And competition is the patron saint of the consumer.
If you
so
can
the
show
Sun
me,
Times, the Sun
Times
Times, right
Jeff,
here.
Jeff,
you believe in competition, right? There you go. So, you see the point?
If you can show me that charter schools have worked on average better than the other schools have, which you cannot show me, this book is one book. Then I'll say we should throw out all public schools, which, by the way, I went to. We should throw away public schools, and then we will have all charter schools. But the fact is, we have to try different things. Charter schools is one thing we definitely have to support.
Why not vouchers? You keep going back to charter schools. Have we dismissed school vouchers as a
vouchers is something I haven't heard people talk about for ages. People have been talking about charter schools more recently.
Well, let me. Okay, I'll be.
So let me ask you about what about other things, such as what about number one, trying to have longer school days, trying to have.
You'll have more money eventually. You'll have a longer day, and you'll have the same.
You don't think longer school day will matter?
Not significally so. I'm not opposed.
If you have an hour and a half,
it's a distraction and a diversion. I'm not opposed to it.
If you have an hour and a half extra if you have an hour and a half more day of school, where these kids come earlier, stay later, where they get more face and time in front of a good teacher, not somebody who's got tenure and they can't get out, but good teachers, teachers who are rewarded according to their abilities, not just for showing up. And for an hour and a half more, you get more history, more math, more English. Are you telling me that isn't a fundamental way to improve the schools? Not just an added-on thing.
Why is a longer day going to suddenly give you better quality teachers, more motivated teachers,
I said, in addition to that.
No, but I'm.
And the way you get more,
you seem to say,
and the way you get better quality teachers is you tie performance to teaching, which is something that is finally being taken seriously in this country, and people are doing it.
But the point is, if you had to choose between a longer school day and
you don't have to choose. You can do both. Okay. You can have charters. You can have a longer school day. You can have school turnarounds where you close down the worst schools and try to make them better in the course of the summer. Throw out the bad principal. Throw out the bad teachers. Create a whole new culture. You can do all of these things. The idea in this society where public schools and no kind of schools, including charters, have been a solution. The idea that you should seize on one solution and ignore all the others is simply not very sophisticated.
Well,
you do charters,
sometimes
and you do
sophistication is good and sometimes not. But
in this case it's good.
Sophistication purely for the sake of sophistication?
No,
that's not a good thing.
Now you're playing on the word sophistication. What we're saying is,
well, you're the one who said it. I mean,
I said it, and I meant it in the idea that you have a more complex, thoughtful way of doing things, and to reduce it to the idea that if you give us charter schools, it's all solved.
No,
you give us vouchers,
Tom,
and
I
it's all
didn't say
solved.
that, Tom.
That seems to be what you're saying.
I said school vouchers and charter schools.
And that'll solve our problems?
Can I finish my sentence? You're getting pretty good at this. People
No,
say I interrupt.
seriously.
You're doing a much better job than I've ever done. You should be over here, and I should be learning from
How
the
does that
master.
solve our problem?
Well, let me finish my
What
sentence.
if it doesn't?
Could I finish my sentence?
Yeah.
Okay. Charter schools and school vouchers are a necessary but not a sufficient condition to improve the quality of education. You're right. You can actually have vouchers and charter schools and have awful schools. I would agree to that.
All right.
But on average,
no, on average, there's no.
on average, I'm never going to.
Well, this is where you're wrong. Because Jeff, you said it
Jeff.
before, and I've heard it. On average, you're wrong. If you look at the studies in an honest, sophisticated way, you will find out that charter schools have failed to succeed on average and being more and better at
my
teaching
challenge
kids.
to you, Tom.
That is the truth.
You've heard of, what do they have? The mikveh challenge. This is the Berkowitz challenge. Okay.
Yeah.
It's a little different from the Ab mikveh challenge, and he was a former guest of the
Ab
show.
Mikveh would
Ab's a
agree with
great
me,
guy.
by the way. But go ahead.
Yeah. Well, he's a Democrat, and let me guess. Are you a Democrat?
No.
You're not. You're a Republican.
I have voted for Republicans and Democrats every election my entire adult
On
life.
average, are you split
first-
evenly down the road?
You know, I wouldn't even tell you that because I'm the editorial page editor, but I can guarantee you
It's
I have
disclosure.
endorsed
Why
both.
would that be bound to have a disclosure?
Because I'm not a Republican or a Democrat for purposes of my job.
Do you think you're an independent?
I think I try to be, in my job, you have to be open to every good candidate.
Okay.
And if you look,
Why
Jeff,
do you think Ab mikveh would agree with you?
he would agree that charter schools are not the only solution.
He'd probably say they're not a solution because he's a Democrat.
He'd probably say that.
He doesn't hide. He's a
He
Democrat.
may say that. I don't know. I
The
can't speak on
Democrats
Ab.
are in the pocket of the teachers'
I
unions.
can't see.
You know that.
That's not true.
How many Democrats do you know who've come out for
It
school
used to
vouchers?
be true.
How many? Give me a Democrat who's elected for public office who's
Senator
come out for
Meeks,
school
but
vouchers.
let me ask you about this.
One. That's the
Yeah,
one.
Jeff,
Give
now
me
let me
two.
ask you this.
Okay.
Let me ask you this.
Okay.
Who were the people in Springfield who, against the opposition against the teachers, who fought this tooth and nail? Who were the people in Springfield who voted in a law that required that teachers be rewarded according to performance? They can't just show up anymore. That pay raises and keeping a job are all dependent on performance, how well the kids, and performance means how well the kids
That
school.
didn't happen.
That happened in Springfield.
You're talking
You know how
about this
that happened?
legislation that passed this last year?
And who were the ones that voted for a
that's not
longer
that
school day?
legislation.
Voted
You're
for a
gonna tell
longer,
the teachers' unions?
excuse
Is that
me,
what you're going to tell
voted
them?
for a longer school day despite the opposition of the teachers' union. Who were the people that? And who was the mayor, the Democratic mayor, who hired the Brizard, the superintendent, who has the teachers' union screaming at him because he's doing these things that make the teachers upset?
He wants charter schools, but he doesn't want vouchers. And why do you
My
suppose
point
that
is, you just asked me, would they ever do anything to offend unions? You said that, the teachers' union. And my answer is, a Democratic...
They wouldn't go all the way. They wouldn't
My
go to.
point-
They wouldn't go to school vouchers. That I can
These
say.
people are-
That I can say with certainty. You give me the name
Oh,
of
because
one person
because
other
the
than Meeks
unions
who
because
supports
the
school
unions
vouchers.
because they offend the unions, they upset the unions by having longer school days.
Rahm
by
Emanuel's
tying-
about the
by-
only
excuse
guy
me,
you can
by,
name.
excuse me, by tying performance to how well the school kids do, by in every way except vouchers, they offend the unions and upset them. But you say because they don't go for vouchers, that sometimes they're pro-teachers union and are unwilling to offend the teachers union because they don't go that one extra step that you want.
None of them.
Is that what you're saying?
None of them go to school vouchers, Tom. None
So
of them.
therefore, they're pro-union.
Well, it's a little odd.
So
You would think
therefore,
somebody
they're in the
might.
so therefore they're in the pocket of the teachers union.
What is
which
the most? What is? If you
Excuse
ask the
me,
unions,
did you not say
Yeah.
the Democratic Party in this town is in the pocket of the teachers union?
Right. Not just in this town, Tom.
Did
in this
you not-
country,
in this city,
country.
in this city.
Do you know how many
Let's
people
stick
are
with
delegates?
Chicago.
Do you know how many delegates in the Democratic Party are members
Believe
of the
me,
National Education
believe me,
Association?
the unions. Believe me, the unions.
Can I
are-
answer that question,
the-
Tom?
No, I don't know that.
Yeah,
but let me.
because it's like 1 out of 10.
I agree.
So it's
the
whole
unions
damn
are all
Democratic
Democrats.
convention. Okay?
I agree with you that the unions are all Democrat. Believe me, and the Democrats support the unions. But
Especially
let's
teachers'
get back to
unions.
the
That's where
issue
the
that
money
you're
is,
trying to get
okay?
away from.
That's where the money
but
is.
let's get
That
back
and
to
the tort lawyers.
Let's get back to the issue you're trying to get away from. You said that the Democratic Party in this city and this state is in the pocket of the Chicago Teachers Union. If you go and talk to the head of the Chicago Teachers
Karen
Union,
Lewis.
pardon me?
Every
Maryland.
teacher's union, Maryland was.
And what you will and what you will find is that they're outraged. What you will find is they are outraged by the legislation in Springfield that gives them no choice but to work a longer school day.
Kimberly Langford.
That changes.
What's her name, Kimberly?
That changes how they
she was working hand in hand. She's a Democrat. That legislation was getting transformed in a way
that legislation.
When you start reading the fine print, it's not quite the way you say it is, Tom.
Jeff, actually, as a matter of fact,
if you would not get Democrats supporting
if you ask the Chicago Teachers Union about whether they can live with this, you know why it got through,
by the way? They did live with it. The Democrats were voting for it.
You know what?
They thought they were getting something for it.
You know who supported it? And this kind of goes to your point. Who supported it was the Illinois Teachers Association, the downstate and suburban teachers. It was the Chicago Teachers Union that fought it. You had unions on both sides of that bill.
Yeah, number one, Tom, that bill, in 5 years, I invite you to come back. Yeah. That bill will be there, and there will be no improvement. If that's all we do, Tom, we'll be talking about the same thing, okay?
Well, all right.
I invite you. In fact, I invite you to come back once next year, and the next year, and the next year, and you give me a progress report, Tom, because you want to do it 3 months, 6 months, 9 months.
I'm going to tell you right now.
It's just not going to change, Tom.
Hey, Jeff, I'm going to tell you right now.
Ball. Where is
I'm going to tell you right now, you could have charter schools for every kid in this city, and I might still come back in 5 years and not see a lot of progress. Okay. It's a very tough
That might be, Tom.
It's a very tough challenge.
But if it were school vouchers, here, let me give you an alternative, because people watching this may be getting a little tired. We're entering, I think, our second half of the show here, and I don't want to wear people out. So let me go to a related topic.
Yeah.
So, Tom, we spend now, you might know this, being the, and I don't say this sarcastically, because I think, number one, the Sun-Times is very informed on this, and you do write a fair amount, not as much as I would like, but you do, and you do have able reporters.
Let me just say, when
don't take this as an attack on the Sun-Times.
Let me just make a point here.
Yes, sir.
When you start this conversation by questioning how often the editorial page writes about schools and what to be done, you may not agree with those editorials, but I beg you to go back and count every editorial, they're all online, and you will see that nobody in this town, and any newspaper, suburban or city, covers that issue on the editorial page the way we do.
There's not a lot of competition. There are only 2 papers in this town, the Tribune and the Sun-Times. The Daily Herald doesn't count.
I think you need
the Defenders doesn't really count.
I'm asking you to acknowledge the point, which is
so 1 out of 2, you're better than them? Okay, maybe. I don't even know if that's true.
We cover this issue fully, and we cover it all the time. And I ask you to go back and count for yourself, okay? Because you probably won't agree with the editorials.
I'll ask you to go back and count one thing yourself, okay?
What?
Go back and look how many times you've come out for school vouchers, unlimited. And here's another thing to go back and look, Tom.
We just don't agree
Here's
on
another
that.
challenge,
Jeff,
Tom.
No, here's we just don't agree on that.
We agree you should be factually accurate.
No.
We agree you should be factually accurate.
What you're saying is silly.
You don't want to be factually accurate?
No, it may be your show, but I don't play the game where you can just say something. Let me say something.
I want to ask you a question.
No, you are. No, you're not asking a question. You're saying something that leads a false impression. We don't agree with you. We don't agree with Jeff Berkowitz
or Joe Bass.
Excuse me.
Or with 50 other people.
Excuse me. Excuse me. Really. Let me say something. We don't agree with you editorially about charter schools and vouchers as being the silver bullet you seem to think it is. But
you keep saying that.
You do. But let me say. But if you look,
but you don't want me putting words in your mouth.
But if you look at how often we write about schools. You don't have to agree with us, but I'm trying to make a point. We do write about the issue frequently. You don't have to agree with us, but you have to understand we take it very seriously.
Schools, okay. Let me modify my statement a little bit, okay? If I were to modify it and say number one.
See, what you're doing is like a Fox TV thing.
This is like a Fox. No, it's not.
Yes,
like
it is. It's
because
like a Fox
I've invited
TV.
you.
I know, but
I've invited you with the suspicion you might disagree with me.
No. What you do then
you're in the MSNBC mode. You want people who agree with you to be asking questions.
But what you do is
Rachel Maddow.
What you do is you ask a question.
You two
and actually, Rachel Maddow and those people, they do the same thing. I totally agree.
Right.
And I'm asking you.
There's only one good Fox show, and there's only one good show on. You know what it is?
You know what?
It's Brett Baer's special report because they have balance.
I like him too.
That's the only good show.
Let me
not Hannity
and that Ed show.
Not Chris Matthews.
But I'm asking you not to be like Ed, not to be like Rachel Maddow, not to be like Sean.
That's the worst thing you can say about. I'm like Tim Russert.
I don't think so.
Yeah.
No, I don't think that's not what I'm hearing here.
John Calloway.
When
those are my heroes.
No.
Not these other schleps.
No, when you're not doing that. What those guys do is when they hear the answer and it doesn't conform with what they think is right, they explore that answer as opposed to simply trying to put them into somebody else into a box. We don't agree on charter schools.
You won't let me ask another question.
You're trying to put me into. Well, you know what? I've learned. Otherwise, it's like Sean Hannity. You'll just talk and make me look silly.
No, I'm not making you look silly. You won't engage me. You want to interrupt me.
I have not engaged you.
Because you want to interrupt me more than I seem to want to interrupt you.
I figured out something here.
Okay.
If I don't talk, you'll just keep talking and make me and try to be unfair about it.
You've had plenty of time to talk. I've had some to talk. This is not a bad discussion.
No, I don't think it is a good discussion. I think it's an unfair conversation where you're not being fair-minded.
Oh, I'm plenty fair-minded.
You see, we disagree on something, so instead of...
You're writing it off too early. We still have a half a show left, so don't give up.
No,
okay?
I'm trying to make a point here. This is very important.
Okay.
Our whole country has too much of what you're doing here.
We only got 3 minutes left, so I've just been
Our
told.
whole country has too much of what's going on here. Okay. People try to play gotcha instead of trying to have an intelligent conversation.
I tried, Tom.
And Jeff, I've seen your show. I didn't know you would be like this. I've seen your show. And I've seen so many. This is what's wrong with our country. We have to have a real conversation.
So you've seen my shows; they're quite different. This
no,
is
actually,
different.
I'm telling you what I'm seeing right here.
But you've seen my shows, and they're quite different.
Not a long time.
Oh well, then you would see the other ones are really quite similar. Here, let me just take 1 minute. We've got about, I think, 2 minutes left, so I'm going to try to be fair. I'll take one. You take one.
I think
okay.
I don't know if I trust you to be fair anymore.
I'm trying.
I mean, really.
Well, come on back another time, and we'll try.
No, here's the thing. I've been asked to be on Sean Hannity's show, and I said, no, I won't do that. You're not fair.
Well, give me 1 minute, and I'll give you one. I've just been told we have 2.5 minutes. Okay. We spend in the city of Chicago now on education. We have about a $6 billion budget. There are about 400,000 students, give or take. You divide one into the other, and you get $15,000 per kid per year. I say to people, and I've had 700 guests, and I've offered this over time. 10 years ago, we were spending about $10,000 per kid per year. Now you divide 400,000 into $6 billion, you get $15,000 per kid per year. I ask people, I say, here's $15,000. Would you like to give it to the parents and let them decide? Do they want to keep their kids in the public school? If so, nothing changed. If not, they want to go to a private school, out goes the kid, out goes the cash. And we'll find out. That's a voucher system. That's a little different than a charter school system. And I would like you to think about that, Tom. And here's my challenge, and then you can talk for a minute. Okay. I would like you to think, my challenge is you troop around with me to talk to the experts who know more than I do, the Joe Basts of the world, who know more at the Heartland Institute, and let them tell us about vouchers. And then I will troop around with you and go to your experts who say it doesn't work.
I've talked
and
to
so
experts.
That's fair, isn't it?
I don't have my experts.
It's your minute now.
I don't have my experts.
Okay.
I don't have your experts.
Okay.
We try to talk to experts. I try to talk to the Heartland Institute. We try to talk to the lefties. We talk to the teachers union. We had a group in the other day, the Viva group, who's very much not with the teachers union. We try to bring in Brizard. We bring in everybody. I don't have my experts and your experts. One of the issues in this country is, once again, is that people marshal people who are their so-called experts who are nothing but an echo chamber for their point of view. See what I'm saying?
See, they're not. This is a serious person. Herb Wahlberg, he's not my expert. I've read this.
I
don't even know Herb.
I am not commenting
I met him once,
I'm not commenting on this book. I'm commenting on what you just said
but they're experts
about
who
your
differ.
experts and my experts.
I just meant by that, there are experts who tend to say school vouchers outperform.
We talk to all of them.
I'm not saying you didn't. I'm not saying you don't, Tom.
Right,
don't get defensive, okay?
I'm not defensive.
Okay.
I'm trying to explain
I'm not saying you
there.
don't. Okay, I understand. You talk to everybody, okay?
Yeah.
My challenge to you was, I'm saying, I will troop around and talk with people, forget my experts, talk to the experts who say school vouchers outperform. And there are plenty who do that. And then there are plenty who say the reverse. And you and I will sit there and try to sort it out and make what we think is the best judgment.
That's what we do every day.
Okay, I'm willing to join with you.
No, that's what we do every day.
For nothing, Tom.
I don't do it, Jeff Berkowitz.
I will do this
for
for
nothing.
nothing. You don't even have to pay me to do this.
Jeff, we do it every day. We don't do it, Jeff Berkowitz. Okay. We do it every day.
Well, humor me. Do it for one day with me, going to those guys, and then the other guys, and then we'll have a show and talk about it. Just humor me. How's that? Is that fair?
If we get, I don't know, if we give $10,000 to a Islamic madrasa that's teaching
15,000, not 10.
15,000.
Yeah.
They're a school, they're a private school.
Right.
Is it okay to give 15,000 of them?
Probably, because the danger from that, Tom, I'm not for, I understand the problems.
Yeah.
You can't make everything perfect. The danger from having some loony teach some bad things I don't want taught, you don't want taught, is less than the danger of having 400,000 kids or 200,000 kids not learning how to read.
I agree.
I'm willing to take that chance, even though I wouldn't teach those things, you wouldn't.
Right.
I want, the most important thing I think, and I think you agree with me, okay, teach kids how to read. If you can do that, you're well ahead of the game. We haven't figured out how to do it in the last 20 years. Let's give it a shot.
It's the most basic thing in the world.
All right. We're going to continue speaking.